Good morning, friends. It is so early for me to be outside with my camera. Declan is still asleep. Kenneth hasn't left for work yet. The birds are chirping. I've seen a few of my bird friends this morning. We have a cardinal that likes to hang out. And there's a really pretty blue one who hangs out with him, and I don't know what it is, but I've already been bird watching this morning. I love the cardinal with his bright red colors. This wonderful, beautiful morning is the start of my very first garden tour. Now, if I was smart, I would have come out here this morning and watered everything and cleaned up the garden before I brought y'all out. But I didn't, and it's kind of a mess. But that's okay. We're rolling with it, guys. This is May, beginning of May, and this property where we're standing right here was all woods. Like October, December. Like, we were still clearing woods back here then. There was one point in time this year where I didn't even know if I was going to get my garden put in because we had so many homestead projects to get done. And I've kind of had to push a lot through it, but I'm so excited to be able to show y'all my very first homestead garden tour. Raw land to homestead. Here we are. So right here is the entranceway to my garden. Eventually, one day, we will put up a fence that surrounds my garden. It's not up yet. I know deers are going to be a problem out here this year. We've seen them on our property many, many times in the past. We have nothing but farmland around us, so deers are used to the area and being able to get food. But my garden will continue to grow. It will continue to expand. And we're doing things on a budget. So I got my garden put in, but the fencing's going to have to wait till next year. Welcome through the door, make believe, of my garden. So good to have y'all here. So right up front, we have a little yarrow plant. This is a King Edward yarrow. I don't know if it can actually be used medicinally. I found it at Lowe's and it looked very, very sad and poor looking. So I brought it home, stuck it in a pot, and it's looking much, much better. I know wild harvested yarrow, and there's certain types of yarrow that you can use that are very medicinal. This one puts off yellow flowers. And I know light yellow and white, I think, is the medicinal yarrow. So if anybody knows if the King Edward yarrow can actually be used medicinally, will you please let me know? Because I don't know. So behind my yarrow are my strawberry plants. None of them have greened out yet. None of them even look alive. I was warned it could take a few months and that we probably would not get strawberries this year. It would have been much, much better if I could have had these in the ground several months ago. But it didn't happen. I got them in the ground when I could. And I know that we're probably not going to get strawberries this year, but they're in the ground for next year. However, what is going to grow in this bed here are sunflowers. So in between all of my strawberries, I planted sunflowers, and these are mammoth sunflowers. These specifically are Russian mammoth sunflowers. And then the garden bed over here that's on the opposite side of the entrance have mammoth sunflowers in them. These were sent to me in a seed swap, so I'm not sure if they're Russian mammoth or just plain mammoth or what the difference is. But they're planted over here, and we'll see what they are when they grow. Alright friends, one thing y'all are going to learn about me very quickly in this garden tour is I am what I call a hodgepodge gardener. Everything just gets stuck somewhere. As long as it grows, I'm happy. I even done this when I had my plants in 5-gallon buckets last year. Like, I would have a tomato plant and a basil plant in a 5-gallon bucket. You know, the way I look at it in nature, things don't grow one by one. They grow all mixed in together. So my plants are growing all mixed in together. Here I have spearmint. Oh, this stuff smells wonderful. Spearmint is very wonderful medicinally. Things like spearmint tea and stuff, but it is also really good for rabbits. So I'm hoping that this spearmint will kind of go crazy and I can use it to help feed my rabbits from my garden. It just smells fantastic. This whole pot is going to be nothing but spearmint, and I want it to kind of trail over the sides. You will see these pots all throughout my garden. They are a knockoff green stalk that I got from Aldi's last year. I found out very, very quickly that they fall over when stacked. So they're separated, and they've been separated since I got them. They did have like lettuces and stuff in them last year, and this year they've got random things in them. And it's just set up on a tree truck. I figured if they were going to be in my garden, they needed to serve a purpose. So here's going to be the first garden bed where y'all see really that I'm a hodgepodge gardener. So in this bed, I have tomatoes here along this trellis. These are Amish paste tomatoes. Down here at the base of the tomatoes, I have onion starts. So I'm hoping that as our summer gets hot and my tomatoes grow up, they will kind of shade my onions and keep them from bolting so fast. Also, something you may not have known is onions, the smell of them, will actually keep some pests away from your tomatoes. So, hopefully that will work too. And then over here is the lettuces I grew from my Dollar Tree seeds. They look beautiful, and I need to harvest some later for dinner. I mean, they're getting huge. So again, as with the onions, as the tomatoes grow up, I'm hoping they will shade the lettuces some and keep them from bolting so fast. That's the hope anyways. But wait, there's more. So if you can tell from the lettuces, we're on the back side of that trellis. So I had the tomatoes on that side, and I don't know if I said it, but those are Amish paste tomatoes all along that side. Well, on this side of the trellis are peppers. And I'm tagged somewhere. According to my tag down there, these are bullnose peppers. I didn't realize I planted quite that many bullnose peppers, but evidently I did. They are just like a bell pepper. They just tend to be on the smaller side. We like peppers, so we'll eat them regardless, but I've got peppers on this side, onion starch on this side, lettuces on this side, just like the tomato side. The only difference is these are peppers, those are tomatoes. They're all growing in one garden bed that is 4 feet by 8 feet, I think. So a lot of stuff jam-packed in this one garden bed. So far it's all doing great. I do have to fertilize pretty frequently to grow this many different things in here. But they look good, they look beautiful, and hopefully they'll all work together. Oh, I also, as if that isn't enough, I also have basil plants in the corners of the beds. They're still small, so you can't see them. Maybe by next week, they will be much bigger, and I'll be able to show you my beautiful basil plants. But I always plant basil with my tomatoes. So I've got one basil down here on this corner, and one basil back here on this corner. Here's a basil. I think it's called Blue Spice Basil. I'll have to look it up and put the name at the bottom of the screen. I know I've got the packaging for it. It come as a free seed from Baker Creek, so I wanted to give it a try. I love my Genovese Basil. That's the one you'll primarily see throughout my garden, but I wanted to give this one a shot too. It's got a different leaf pattern than Genovese, and so we'll see how I like it. Now here I also have more tomatoes. These are my San Marzano tomatoes. This bed got a little messed up, so I'm gonna go ahead and be honest with y'all. Confession time. When I started this garden from raw land over the winter, I sat out here, I watched the sun, I mapped out my garden, and then spring came and time to plant came, and it all changed. The sun shaded different parts of my garden than I had originally thought it would. So I had to last minute rearrange where everything was gonna go in my garden. Up here I was supposed to have peas or beans, I can't remember which, but they were going to be along this front row. And my tomatoes were going to be in the back because I thought that's where the most sun was. But it was wrong. So at last minute I put my tomatoes up front and my beans and peas in the back. But if you have seen our potato planting video, you know after I planted our massive potato bed back there, I had extra potatoes and I had an empty garden bed, and so I went through and just planted potatoes thinking I would either have beans or peas on this trellis, and you can co-plant tomatoes with those, but I didn't. I ended up putting tomatoes up here with my potatoes. It's not recommended you do that, so don't follow my footsteps, guys. This is a do as I say, not as I do moment. Potatoes and tomatoes will actually attract the same type of pest, and so you're more likely to have pests out here on your garden. I'm gonna have to be way more vigilant because I was not pulling my potatoes back up. They'd already sprouted. They're already looking beautiful. So I went ahead and went with it, and we're gonna see how it goes. But this garden bed is definitely hodgepodge gardening. I had my basil right here that I showed y'all. My San Marzano tomatoes are along this trellis. Right in front of them right here are potatoes. And it was planned to be like in that bed over there where I had onion starts at the base of my tomatoes to help ward off pests, to give the onions some place to go. So I have tomato, potato, basil, onions. Yeah. This bed looks good so far, but we're gonna have to keep a very close eye on it. I don't know how well it's gonna work, but we're gonna find out together. So make sure you're checking in every Wednesday for my garden tour to see an update on can you actually grow potatoes with tomatoes and what happens if you do. Now you can see a lot better over here. My potatoes are doing fantastic actually. My onions are down here at their bases, and then in the back here, I have more peppers. These are my red Marconi peppers right through here. And then at the end, these are my orange bell peppers. I had really thought I had done a similar method on that first bed where I split my peppers in half and did one half on one end and then the bullnose on the other. So I don't know if Declan ran away with my garden tag or if I forgot to put one or if those really are all bullnose. So we're gonna have to wait and see as it grows what it is. And I have a master gardener list inside I'll have to go look at where I actually diagrammed my garden beds and wrote in them what I was planting as I was planting it, just in case my 3-year-old ran off with my garden tags, which is what may have happened. Behind me, we are at the base of my arch trellis. So this cattle panel back here, that's why it's so far back, is the start of my arch trellis. Right here in the corner, I have my Genovese basil. So this is the Genovese basil. This is very classically what I think of when I think of basil. It's just very beautiful leaf pattern. And if you don't know, you want to pinch your basil. So this is something I did with my mint. Also, you pinch the top of it off right before where there's 2 leaves teeing together, like this. You especially want to do that if you see any kind of like cluster of leaves, because you don't want it to risk it going to seed. It tastes different when it goes to seed and you don't want that. But pinching it off before those leaves will cause those leaves to be branches and it will cause your basil to bush. I did not do this until much later in the garden season last year, and I had one very strong stalk of basil going up and then it bushed at the top as I was harvesting it throughout the season, and it really caused it to get top heavy. And so I had to stake it in with my tomatoes. So I'm trying to remember to do this early on this year to keep that mistake from happening. All of this basil that I pick off, we will either use in recipes or we'll go to the rabbits because they can have a lot of basil. So back here behind me, behind the basil, these are ground cherries. These are the Aunt Molly's ground cherries. And then in the back, behind the ground cherries are Beta-Luxe tomatoes. I only have a few of them back there. I only planted a few. We had these last year. They're more of like salad style tomatoes. They're bigger than cherries, but they're not like a big slicer tomato or a paste tomato. I just had some seeds left over. I don't plan on planting them again next year, so I just went ahead and planted what I had at the back, and I've got my ground cherries up here in the front. Now, I've never had a ground cherry, so I'm hoping that I love these because I have a lot of them planted. Behind me is my arch trellis, and hopefully soon it will be covered in its produce and we will get to walk through it together. Today we'll walk through it, but it's not the same as when it'll be covered. So technically, when you enter my garden bed, the arch trellises are behind you, and so you will be able to enter through the arch trellis. And on my arch trellis, I am growing these Chinese red noodle beans. They're still very, very little right now, but they will grow up the arch trellis and hang down and just be beautiful. So I have the Chinese red noodle beans on each side of the beginning of my arch trellis right here, so that they will grow up and hang down. Now, I watched one of Jess's videos, and I have a feeling I have way too many beans planted on this trellis because I did them as if a trellis was going to go up and they were going to stop at the top. But from what she hinted at in a recent video, they will actually keep going over, and so they may smother each other. At that point, I will have to go through and pick some of the plants out. I planted this very heavily, but just be prepared in the future. I may have to rip a lot of this out because I have my Chinese red noodle beans planted at the first half of my trellis, and then this back half. On this side, I have cucumbers. They are Space Master cucumbers is what they're called, and so they will trellis up also. I don't think they're going to get very tall. These are more for containers. They're called Space Master because they're not supposed to take up a whole lot of space. I got these while I was doing my container garden last year. I planted them way too late in the season last year and they never grew well for me. So I'm hoping this will be a little bit of my redemption. On this back half of my trellis over here, I have 1,500-year-old cave beans from Baker Creek that will also trellis up and around, so it's going to be very beautiful is what I'm hoping. Anyways, let's see how it goes. I'm just ready to see things growing off of this trellis. So all of those are planted on the inside of these garden beds. On the back side over here, I have again my Aunt Molly's ground cherries. Next to that, this is my hot pepper bed. So I have jalapeno peppers on this side over here. Also have some onion sets, I think is what they were, that I got from Tractor Supply in the ground. None of them on this side over here have come up yet, but on the other side some of them have sprouted, so I don't know what the difference is there. And then on this side I have a mix of hot peppers. These all come from our Roots and Refuge content creator meetup that happened recently. A lot of people brought pepper starts and stuff to give away, and so that's where all of these come from. I have habanero chili relleno, I think is what it is. It just said chili R, so I'm assuming that's what it was. And then at the end, I have 3 cayenne peppers. And then I have the onion the onion sets in here. So onion sets are the kind you get in a big bulk bag. They're the dry onion pieces. They're like little bitty dried onions. Onion starts are where somebody's actually started them from seeds and they've got tops and stuff on them. So that end, with those tomatoes, potatoes down there, those are all onion start that I got from my local feed store. These over here are onion sets that I got from Tractor Supply. I'm going to see which one grows better. I was told that the onion starts form a better bulb than onion sets, but we're going to see. And then down here on this corner, I have a lonely tomato plant that I got from the Roots and Refuge meetup. I think it was a Dr. Witchy's. I'm not even sure anymore what it was. It may not have been. I don't know. It may have been a Black Beauty. I don't know. It's a mystery tomato. So my mystery tomato, its leaves are looking a little yellow and brown. It's been in the ground here for about a week, so I don't know if it's something in this soil that it doesn't like or what. And I don't know if it was like not hardened off or whatever. My peppers over here are not having issues, but this tomato is having a big time issue. So I don't know if it's gonna make it, but I'm trying. I'm just being honest with y'all. So this back here behind me is my okra bed, and I have just a few okras that are starting to pop their little heads up. I don't know what kind of okra these were. I bought a big bulk package at my local feed store. It's not labeled what type of okra it is. I had some okra seeds that another homesteader had sent to me, and I can't find them anywhere. I was really excited to plant those, and I don't know where they've run off to, so I didn't get to plant those this year. We'll hope for next year. But this whole bed is okra. Once these grow up a little bit more, I will actually come back and plant sweet potatoes at the bases of my okra to shade out any weeds that may come. I want the sweet potatoes to vine all over this bed after the okra gets tall. That way the okra doesn't have to compete for weeds and stuff. And it will dual purpose my bed because, as we know, I don't plant just one thing in any of my garden beds. This beside me is a little bit of sage. And then I planted some parsley here, but it's not even sprouted yet. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it'll come up. This over here is again another okra bed that will have sweet potatoes in it also. And this area back here behind me is actually the start of my Three Sisters garden. So I've got corn planted back here. I'm not seeing any corn sprouts. I don't know how long corn takes to germinate, but mine's not come up yet. Again, it was a corn I got from a local feed store. I don't know the type because they don't label their products. Like, they do in store, and I'm sure when I chose it, it had the corn name on it. But when he sells you the package, it's just a white package that says corn on it and how much you spent for it. I hope it's a really good corn because I've planted, this whole bed is probably 9 feet by 20 feet, and it's got 2 rows of corn in it. And then it, like I said, it's gonna be the start of my 3 sisters bed. So I will come back after this corn gets a few inches tall. I will plant some beans in here, and I will plant some pumpkins on the end. So instead of squash down here, this one will have pumpkins in it, which is like a type of squash. And that way the pumpkins will vine from each end and cover the corn, because corn likes its feet cold. It doesn't want sun on its roots. And so the pumpkins vining across will actually protect that corn. And from what I've read, the pumpkins actually will deter raccoons from getting to your corn because they don't like the pumpkin vine. That's what this is gonna be. It will be corn, beans, and pumpkin. The main thing I'm wanting out of this bed is the corn and the pumpkins. If I get to harvest some beans out of here, I will be super, super thrilled with that because we love beans. But if not, the beans are mainly planted as a food source for the corn and pumpkins. They will be my nitrogen in the bed. This is an in-ground bed. Unlike my raised beds over there, I just put the wood logs up around it to kind of block it from Declan. He is slowly learning we do not walk in garden beds except for where mommy has put an aisle, like in the corn, there's a center aisle you can walk down. Other than that, we don't walk in our garden beds. So these logs are just a reminder for him and for me of where the corn is planted. But these are in-ground beds. I use my little hand tiller to loosen up all the soil. I come in with some topsoil and compost over the top, did my alfalfa pellets, and then covered it in mulch. But they are in-ground beds, so we'll see how my corn does, and my beans, and my pumpkins once they're planted. This bed is actually empty. I have some tomatoes that are going hog wild up there by my RV that are still in their tomato starting container that I gotta get planted out here today. That's the name of the game today. Gotta get that done. This is a little aloe plant that looks like crap. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with this. It says to keep in a bright sunny location, but is it too much sun? I used to tell myself I could not garden because everybody picked on me because I kill aloe plant. Like, aloe plants are supposed to be something anybody can grow, but I can't. Mine always die. I found this one the other day at Aldi's for like $4, so I bought it and it looks like it's dying. I don't know what I'm doing with this aloe plant. I don't know. Now, this behind me is my Mother's Day present from Kenneth and Declan. It is a big, ginormous umbrella that opens up. It's an 11-foot umbrella. It's got 3 tiers in it so it doesn't like blow away in the wind. The wind can pass through it, which is fantastic. It's got these beautiful blue chairs with it and a table. So we've already had dinner out here once and I love it. It's a great place when you're working in the garden to just sit and relax. I have watched Jess at Roots and Refuge for years. She has always said the best medicine for the garden is the gardener. And so I knew when I designed this garden that I wanted a place where I could sit and just be in my garden. A place where we could have meals, a place where I could just read a book or just hang out. And so for Mother's Day, this is what I got, and I'm so excited with it. So over here is a poor lonely tomato start that never got put in the ground because I ran out of room. And my basil starts, these are the ones that still need a bed. I have that other tomato bed over there. And then I've got some with the ground cherries and stuff in it, so I'll add the rest of these in later on today. So behind me are the beefsteak tomatoes that I planted for the Dean Family Acres Tomato Challenge. But these things, these beefsteaks are going just like wild. I need to get out here and tie them up, stake them up. These actually already had blooms on them before I even planted them, so I picked off those blooms and these have formed ever since. So I'm hoping I'll actually get tomatoes out of these. I picked off some of this basil. I really think it's blue spice. Ain't it pretty? On the back side of my beefsteak tomatoes, I have peppers. So the beefsteaks are like trying to grow through the trellis, but I have banana peppers growing up here. So I have banana peppers growing on this side. And back here I have California Wonder bell peppers. So all of my sweet peppers are like on this side, and then my hot peppers are all the way over there. So behind me, behind those peppers, looking into my garden from the doorway, it's on the right, the very most right hand bed on the center row. So that's where we're at. So we went that way, we come over, we're coming back this way, and then we'll go over and we'll go down. So I've got 3 rows, 6 beds up front, 4 in the middle, 6 beds in the back. Then I've got that corn bed on that side. And then I'm hoping to put in a melon bed on this side, but it's not done yet. It will be like that, based out of logs and firewood, just to outline it in in-ground bed. I just need to get it done. Over here I have cucumbers and yellow squashes. So these right here are the Market More 76 cucumbers. See my little tags I made? I did winter sowing in milk jugs this year on a lot of my plants, and then I didn't want to throw all of those milk jugs away after I'd already found a use for them. You know, it just felt wasteful. So I cut them up and made them into plant tags. So there's that. So I have the Market More 76 cucumbers on this half of this trellis. And then on this half over here, I have yellow scallop squash. And they actually look really, really pretty with all this veining on their leaves. I only planted 4 of those because we don't eat a whole lot of squash. Kenneth's not a big fan of squash, so I only planted 4. I know it's still going to produce a good amount, but I figured that was enough for 3 of us. This side over here is all cucumbers, and it is my Boston pickling cucumbers. Now, I don't have anything planted at the base of these cucumbers yet. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to put here. Probably some kind of herbs or something. Flowers maybe will go around these cucumbers. I just don't know yet. I have to get something planted here, or it's just going to be a cucumber and squash bed. I just don't know what I'm going to do. Ignore this large sweet gum. I need to cut it down. We had a storm the other day, and I don't know if it was the weight of the water or what, but a lot of our small sweet gum saplings just bent. And they do this with any kind of like bad weather. So what we're figuring is because it was so overgrown forest, they're just not strong enough, and the rain and the wind is just bending them over. But this will be cut down later today, and it will go to feed rabbits and goats and chickens and stuff. On this one, I have some oregano and some thyme. This bed behind me doesn't have anything in it. It will have peas in it. I have pea starts that need to get planted today. These beds just went up like 2 days ago. And then these beds with all the solo cups in them got planted last night at dark, and I haven't gotten their plant tags made yet. The solo cups are what I soaked my beans in. So when you plant beans, you need to soak them for several hours or overnight first to rehydrate them. It helps them germinate faster. So I soaked each of them in some red solo cups. I use these for like plant starts and stuff. So all of these will be saved for next year. And it just has the name of what was soaking in it, and then how far apart they're supposed to be planted. So this one had Cascadia Peas in it. And so that's what basically this whole bed is Cascadia Peas. Now along my peas and beans, under them I will come back through and succession plant lettuces. After they start growing up here, I'll get lettuces hopefully all year, because this area back here is very shady in the early morning to afternoon time, and then afternoon it gets sunnier. So I'm hoping that will help all of my beans and peas as well, because they don't like our really, really hot summers. And from what I've been reading, they will stop setting their blossoms, or they will drop their blossoms in the heat of summer. And so I'm hoping with these being shaded back here, I will get a longer harvest from them. And then hopefully with it being shaded and then them shading lettuces, I'll be able to harvest lettuces all summer, because that will be a big part of feeding our rabbits from the garden. I have a video and a whole blog post I did on feeding rabbits from the garden, and these lettuces play a big part in that. Now, this bed right here has bush beans in it, which is why there's no trellis. This one has one called a provider. I think it's like a green bean. And then it also have Jacob's cattle bush bean. So with these provider beans, if we like them, a lot of them will end up being saved for seeds for next year. Before we get over to this other bed, I want to show you this little pot right here. So this is my Stevia plant. It is very, very tiny right now. I started an entire pack of Stevia seeds and only one germinated. Now I did that because I had already read that it was really, really hard to get stevia to germinate and grow. And obviously they're right, because I started an entire pack and I've got one plant out of it. Fingers crossed we can get the stevia to grow and it will work as a sugar here on our homestead. But I don't know if it's gonna work. I'm trying. I've got another pack of stevia seeds just in case this one doesn't make it. I have that one to try, but we'll see how it goes. So this bed back here, like, we are directly behind my table. This is the very last row in my raised bed garden, and we're in the center. And so this bed is dragon tongue bush beans. This entire bed is. So hopefully we like those, because I planted a whole lot of them. And now we're back to trellises, which means we are on to our runner beans, also known as pole beans. And this one is the Old Homestead, which I think is also another name for a Kentucky, some kind of Kentucky bean. I'll have to look. I'll put the name at the bottom. For some reason, this seed packet called it an Old Homestead, but it also referred to the Kentucky bean on it and said that it's also known as that. Whatever name you know it by, that's what's here. And then on this side of the trellis, I have a black coat runner bean, and this one was from Baker Creek. These bean pods were huge. The seed was like that big. Like it was massive. I think they're supposed to be like a snap pea, but like a bean, but a snap pea. So I don't know, we're gonna see how it is and see if we like it. And the last bed in my raised bed garden are the Cherokee Trail of Tears pole beans from Baker Creek. These are a black bean, and we love black beans around here, so this entire bed is the Cherokee Trail of Tears bean. So over here behind me are my blackberry bushes. They've gotten some pretty good leaves on them. That one looks like it's gonna try and set some fruit. I'm not letting them set fruit this year. I just want them to focus on their root bases, so as I see those, I'm picking them off. And then we have my raspberry bush. This one looks beautiful. It's getting very green around it. This one, on the other hand, also raspberry bush, bought at the same time, come in the same package, has no green. So I don't know what's going on there. But check out this potato bed, guys. Check out my potatoes. So they are getting huge. I've already healed them twice. These were the purple potatoes. These were the Idaho Yellows, and then the Idaho Russets. So as you can see, these purple potatoes look fantastic. These were a seed potato. They were the only seed potato I bought. If you look at them, even the leaves are like purplish. That's so cool. These are my Idaho Yellows. Again, they are doing beautiful. They're huge. These were not a seed potato. These were an organic grocery store potato that I'm growing. And again, look beautiful. They've been healed twice. I need to do it again because they just are growing so fast. These are my russets. They are, again, a grocery store potato, organic grocery store potato. They're not as vigorous and beautiful. They were slower to start. They've been catching up, but they did take much longer to come up. And in some places, they're not come up at all. I don't know what's going on here, but they're growing. So back here is one of those places I was talking about where I got the shade wrong. And that's just something that happens when you're on a new homestead. You're turning raw land into a homestead. It's just how it goes. See, these trees behind me are on our neighbor's property. You can kind of see our fence line behind me. We're gonna have to trim some of the tree branches that overhang my garden, but those trees are not ours to cut down. And then this winter, when the sun was coming, it would come from this direction. So if we're looking to the front towards the arch trellis, this entire left-hand side of my garden was what was getting shade. But as with summer, the sun position changes and now it's coming this way. And so these trees here, which were not a problem in the wintertime shading my garden, are now shading the entire back half of my garden. They're beautiful, but they're very, very leafy. So I don't know if that's what's having an issue on my russets, if they're getting more shade than the rest of the potatoes, but they're just not, like you can see from this end better. My purples, my yellows, my russets, they're just not performing as well. And then over here I have my blueberry bushes. I did have one epic garden failure this year, and that was my garlic. Can you even tell there's a garlic bed there? So we had a very, very warm winter. Like very, very warm. And my garlic all sprouted and grew beautifully. Well, late winter, early spring, we got freak snowstorms that lasted for a few days and was very heavy snow. After a very warm winter, it just like damaged my garlic. And then we had more warm days, like I'm talking 80-degree days. And then we had another freeze. So my garlic didn't do so hot. And it eventually died off. I just couldn't handle all of the temperatures, and since it was in like a very small raised bed, I guess it didn't have as much mulch and stuff on it to keep it warm. But I'm so glad y'all come with me on this garden tour. My first ever garden tour. I currently have 16 raised beds, 2 ingrown strawberry beds, an ingrown corn bed, which will be a Three Sisters garden, and an ingrown potato bed. And I still have one more bed to go that I want to get as a garden bed. It's growing. Next week we'll come back. We'll see how much things have grown up, if some things died off, what other garden failures I have, and if I get the rest of my stuff planted or not. But I will see y'all next Wednesday for the next garden update. For now though, friend, bye.